Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Um, for those who don't know me, my name is Chris Neitzel, also known as Jones, which got extra confusing this year because we have a new employee named Chris Jones. So if you see him, be sure to say hello. Today we're going to talk about hardware, and really I'm going to try to get through a lot of the hardware roadmap items pretty quickly so that we have time for Q&A. But we'll touch on all of the new things as we get through here. So I kind of broke up the roadmap this time into a couple different sections because we just have a lot of platforms out there. So starting with kind of the Edge portfolio, HE100. Today we're shipping the HE153, and of course you've also seen the HE153P, HE250, and we do have the HE155 out on the horizon. Looking at Q4 right now, that's going to be a bit of an evolution, but it's going to have quite a few attention to detail features that are really addressing some of the challenges that we've run into in previous generations of the Intel NUC platform. In addition to that, we're also getting the full lineup of new Lenovo products. So you've heard about the SE100. I believe that came up yesterday. It should have come up in other talks already. That's going to be delivered through On Demand. And then also the SE350 V2, that is a typo. That's going to become available as well. And then we're filling in the rest of the portfolio on demand with the SR250 V3. All right, so the HE155, this one's going to be adopting the new Arrow Lake platform. We are switching vendors on this one to a new base platform. This one's from ASRock Industrial, and there's a number of reasons for that. But really, the key takeaways here, we still have the hybrid core design, but with the P cores, they're going to be dropping hyper-threading. So you're going to see less threads overall, although I don't think that a shortage of threads is going to be the challenge here. And in addition, the efficiency cores are much more potent this time around. I don't know if anybody has looked at any of the reviews for specifically the Arrow Lake Mobile, but you should have seen that, yes, they have improved performance quite a bit. Some things that we're carrying over from the HE153P and also the HE250, the up to 96 gig of storage using DDR5, and we're also introducing now CSO DIMMs. So these are going to be clock, forgot what the actual acronym is, but they're basically, they have a clock driver, so we can achieve higher overall while maintaining stability. So I talked about the vendor change, and in this case, it was really around thermal management. That was the key thing that we wanted to address, whether perceived or actual. Temperatures were elevated in the field for the HE153P, or HE153, my apologies. And so this time we wanted to get something with higher thermal mass and just a better cooling system in general. So the other big takeaway for this one, and with all of our small form factor systems going forward, is that they're going to have 2 drives by default, always. We're not going to be shipping any more systems with a single drive. A number of reasons for that, but obviously resiliency is number one. All right. And then just to quickly review, HE153P, this was our first foray into the 96 gig memory footprint and a slightly higher performance CPU that is still on offer. And then the HE250, which has turned out to be a really versatile platform. This one has really acted as a great catalyst and platform for us to do kind of exciting and different things. We've had partners come up to us needing a GPU, like a dedicated GPU. We were able to implement that. Dedicated networking, we were able to implement that. It's just generally a very versatile platform. All right, so the SE100, it has been talked about quite a bit. They're also on display in the Innovation Lab if you want to head over there after this, but it mirrors very much the same CPU designs and the same kind of core specs as you would find in the HE155, but you're getting that more robust form factor. You're getting it directly from Lenovo, and then they also have the interesting mounting options. And then the SE350, this is an Ice Lake D platform, kind of more in the middle space between your entry level server and your kind of big server. This one has a much bigger memory footprint, 4 NVMe drives right up front, swappable, and some great networking options. All right, and then already out there in the field right now are the HE502, 552, and 552F. These are currently in Supermicro, and you should be familiar with these already. All right, so moving into the second part of the roadmap. This one here, normally what we try to do is stagger a lot of the big releases between the different platforms. So we usually launch with the higher performance platforms first, and then we'll fill in with the kind of higher run rate platforms, and then finally those more entry level platforms. This time around, we're going to try to align a lot of the launch for the next generation coming up in Q1 of next year. But in the short term, we do have the HC 1400 and 1450, an evolution of the 1300 and 1350, and those are looking to launch Q3, so really like in about a month. And the other one on there that you might have noticed, and I believe Jeff alluded to earlier, is that we will have the HC 3450 FG finally ready for launch. That is our GPU-enabled platform, next generation with high availability. All right, to cover these really quick, so 1400 and 1450, these are going to look much the same as the previous generation as far as core count. Obviously, you're getting in the generational improvement. We are increasing the capacity on the storage, and otherwise it's functionally the same. And of course, same level of compatibility with the other platforms. And then our existing 1450D and 5450D, once again, just stopping into review on these. And then 3450F and 3450DF on the higher performance end. And then we will stop at the 5400. This is our high capacity node, all spinners. I'll wait for those pictures. All right, and then finally, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. The 3450 FG, for people that have been anxious to get their hands on it. I know a lot of you have, as we did kind of a soft launch earlier in the year, using that as kind of a tool to get a little bit of feedback in the field from real world usage. So anybody participating in that, thank you. But those are going to be going into actual launch status coming in this next quarter. All right, so now the fun stuff, the future. So number one, you saw all of the launches that were coming in Q1 of 26. And this is going to be focused around adopting and moving over to the Xeon 6 platform. Thing about Xeon 6, if you tried to track it, there's a lot of SKUs. There's a lot of subdivisions of SKUs, and there's a lot of categories of SKUs. It can get really confusing really fast. So know that yes, all of these spec improvements are there. The PCI Express, the CXL, higher core count, etc. But the part to pay attention to is that we're using a subdivision of the Xeon 6 platform. We are going to be adopting some on the performance side of the cores and some on the efficiency side, as we see benefits for both. So at least in our lineup that we're going to be supporting directly, anything from 8 cores up to 32 cores is going to be in the 6500P category. Anything from 36 cores up to 64 cores will be 6700P. The P denotes performance. And then for 64 cores and higher, right, I think we're actually going to have both on that one. we will offer 6700E. These are the Sierra Forest Efficiency Core CPUs. These do not have hyperthreading. They do not boost as high in turbo clock, but there is a bit of a cost savings and power savings. So with that, the first of these platforms, 1550D, this is an evolution of the 1450D today. We're pushing the spinning storage up to 24 terabytes. And then the NVMe flash tier will be up to 15.36 currently. We are looking at adding a 30 terabyte in that space. And then the 5550D, very much mirroring that first, but in the 2U. Now, one thing I wanted to note on these, for the 1550D, you'll notice that we have usually a vendor located up in the upper right there of each of these slides for what we're going to be launching on. Go back to that really quick. For the 1550D, one of the things that we've noticed, and you may have noticed, is that in these next generations, 3.5-inch drive bays are becoming scarce. And so we have not determined exactly which platform we're going to launch on yet for that one. But just know that we do want to have something in that space and will. All right, and then finally the flash tier for the high performance nodes. When we get to the 3550s, those are going to be switching from a U.2 or U.3 connectivity. Very much looks like SAS. And of the newer generation interconnects for NVMe storage, we're going to be using the E3.S. And of those, that is the one that looks just like a U.2, but with a little interface sticking out of the side of it. And these are those platforms. So for this, we're going to be using 8 drives in the 3550F rather than the traditional 4. And we're going to make sure that we have some storage options in kind of that lower space. And I would like feedback about that as well, if the increased storage on that particular tier is desirable. And then finally, for the 3550DF, dual socket system, both populated, and up to 12 drives. All right, and then another thing that was mentioned in some of the earlier talks is a focus around GPU enablement, and specifically around integrated GPU enablement. We've had a couple of hurdles that have kept us from really enabling functionality on the integrated GPUs for a lot of platforms. That's going to be resolved here coming up in 9.6. And so that's going to allow us to do kind of one-to-one virtual pass-through or one-to-many, actually having multiple VMs accessing the integrated GPU on a lot of the platforms. All right, and then I'm sure the question that at least one person, probably many have in the room, is why not hardware pass-through? A lot of reasons for that. Some of them are obvious, some of them less obvious, but really it locks up the resource, defeats high availability. That's the one that's really a non-starter with, just philosophically. We want to make sure that you always have high availability. Then there was a question about portability, and every implementation is very platform specific. We have to carve out that specific GPU or that specific resource and assign it to a specific VM. It's just not great. So with that, I did manage to get through it pretty quick. So I'd like to open it up to any questions. It doesn't necessarily have to be about exactly the content in the slides, but I am here to answer whatever you got.
Planning anything for the heavier AI, so you read your sidelights, but yeah, that's one big 4. Whatever that thing was.
Yeah.
It said it just had one L4 GPU.
Correct. So yeah, the question was about, are we looking to support multiple GPU systems? The answer is yes. So that first system that we have coming up, the 3450 FG, as you mentioned, it's a single GPU. That was meant as kind of a building block, so that it's scalable, but without spending too much. But multiple GPUs, absolutely necessary. Kind of in that same class as the L4 card, we're going to have one platform coming up that will have at least two, likely three. And then beyond that, we don't have any concrete plans, but we do know that we need something in kind of the dual L40S, or kind of that range. Something with quite a bit more memory, quite a bit more GPU grunt than you're going to get from an L4. Yep.
On the SE100, any concern about 1 gig near there as opposed to like 5 gig that we're seeing like on the nose and stuff? Is the networking there going to be kind of similar in setup to the way that it started out?
Yes. So for anybody that didn't hear, it was a question about the SE100 networking and kind of the limitations of the 1 gig interfaces. Concern would be probably a bit too much. It is noted, and it's something that we want to make sure to call out that if you're going to be dependent on high speed storage, making sure that your backplane is moving a lot of data, that's going to be a limitation. So for that, but we know that that's still going to be an appealing platform. They do have the sidecar, and that sidecar, while you do lose the ability to put 3 into a 1U space, it's going to be 2 in a 1U space. Now you have access to, quad port SFP or.
Is that pure bolt-on, or do you have to reconfigure it with the side, like you have to pick the form factor and then go that way?
That's a good question. I'm guessing. I probably don't want to guess, but I think it's something that you have to order at the time. I don't know that it's necessarily bolt-on.
You could put a 10 gig in that sidecar and then install it. That was it.
Correct. Yeah. And the way that we're going to be certifying the platform designs, and we're going to have it standalone, just kind of as is. Then we're going to have it with the sidecar with a quad port SFP28, and then also with Varec GPUs. So it is with the sidecar, you do pick one option, whatever it is. So you're choosing high speed networking, or you're choosing an additional GPU. It's not multiple, but there are options.
Well, I guess one final question: would there be implications sort of BX that are on that this or is it just happened to do more with like how quickly you could replicate out to the other drives? I guess if you are constrained on that 1 gig interface, what are some of the side effects, for instance, on that?
Sure. Yeah. So slower backplane is going to impact storage speed overall. When you think about kind of the scribe architecture, we're always making sure that we're writing on 2 different nodes, and so because of that, every single time there's going to be data that's transiting that network.
So both read and write performance would be affected by that.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned about the hardware pass through. My concern is that we've got customers on the other prior, and we run SIM solutions like Alien Vault or something and acquire a dedicated NIC so you can mirror the port. And so we're having to either throw in another server to a physical box now. Are there any plans to have a solution where we can have a separate NIC dedicated to a VM?
Yeah. So the separate NIC dedicated to a VM, this one, it does come up fairly frequently. Usually we can get around it or kind of work towards a solution using VLANs or using some other method. However, sometimes we can't. And so for those cases, we have in some pilot programs run an additional NIC. It's actually pretty clunky. And our engineering team has found a much more slick solution, basically doing an internal bridge and then sequestering a single NIC or however many NICs from that platform. This comes up a lot on the HE250.
Yeah, I understand. You can't
Yeah.
move VMs from one to the other appliance, and that's a limitation now in VMware, obviously, because it's tied to the hardware. But it is out there, and some things we're actually having to leave legacy VMware systems out there just that are running those servers because we can't port them over to scale at this point. So
yeah, it's not something that's been productized, but it actually addresses that need as well. As long as on the network side, external of the cluster, they all have connectivity on that, whatever that special port is. You can still get migration, for example. And that's why we choose the kind of bridge methodology versus the purely hardware dedicated NIC. That way we're still exposing something that is unique. It's outside of the LAN and the backplane, but it's still something that we can manage like we would for other VMs.
Is that something we can open a ticket with support and work with them
Yes.
to use? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that will definitely get set up every time. There's going to be some back and forth questions trying to find a good solution that isn't necessarily that, but it'd be great to have you put in that ticket. That way it's visible and, kind of counts as another vote. So appreciate it.
So we've got a lot of SMBs, and we've been putting in the HE 300, I think, series machines and everything. I'm kind of attracted to the idea of the NUCs and especially the GPU. But you mentioned that there was some cooling fans. Like, what kind of noise am I going to be looking at if I'm putting this into a small office?
On which platform? Like one of the
One of the little NUCs with the GPU. What kind of fan noise am I going to be looking at? Like, if the person in the next office over are going to be pissed off because I just put in something that's like spinning up a lot.
Got it. So I'll cover kind of the range. So today with the HE153, for example, it wouldn't be any different than it is right now. Right now, we just don't expose the functionality of that integrated GPU. Now, if you step up into something like the SE100 with the sidecar and you have that there, that's going to be dependent on the NIC that gets installed. So, if it's one of the lighter weight NICs, it's going to be fairly quiet. If it's, the RTX 4000, you can expect a little bit of a whine for sure. Thank you.
You mentioned about you're putting 2 new storage devices in the small NUC factors for redundancy. How is that adding redundancy? What are you doing?
So, basically we're going to be using 2 different physical drives inside the system. One of them will be an M.2, and then the other one is a 2.5-inch drive in kind of the tall form factor. Now, if you switch down to the slim form factor, which we're also going to offer, that's going to be an M.2 and an M.2, but that second M.2 is much smaller. So there will be a storage capacity limitation on that particular one. And as far as the redundancy, today, if you lose a drive on one of those nodes, that node's effectively down. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. Having that second drive at least gives an opportunity, especially with the file system where the hypervisor lives. That's still going to be accessible, even if we lose one of the scribe RSDs.
Can you speak specifically to the redundancy? Like, how is that going to affect? Right now, if one of those nodes goes offline, my site's down. So what are my options in the future?
With 2 drives, it won't be down.
Is it
effectively.
a situation where you mirror the drive? Is that what you're?
So there's on all systems or any of the systems that we offer that have multiple drives, they always have a software RAID for the hypervisor. Like that's always, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And then last question was, I saw the Intel GPU support. Is there AMD coming, NVIDIA? What are the options there?
So depending on the platform, with the SE100 from Lenovo, for example, they've selected 3 GPUs, all of them NVIDIA, as their add-in. Obviously, the iGPU will be what it is. And then for us on our platforms, right now we're sticking with NVIDIA for the add-in cards. We are open to others, and right now we're actually looking at both AMD and Intel. A lot of it comes down to being able to enable the virtualization support. So, yeah. Yep.
If you have a 3-node cluster with solid state and spinners, can your 4th node, does it have to follow the same structure, or can you switch that up to an SSD only?
That is a great question. So it was about elevating or changing the storage composition. Generally speaking, we say, try to stick to whatever it is that makes it the easiest. It's completely hands-free. But there are scenarios where, yes, you can switch to or introduce one of the other storage options. One of the easiest ones, I say easy, just it doesn't really require any extra effort, is yes, add an all SSD unit. What that ends up doing is all the SSD tier gets put in with the standard storage tier, not with the flash tier. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's considered more the bulk storage versus the cache tier.
Yeah, because we do a page rollouts every year, like so actually
Yeah, so that moment where that transition occurs and you remove the last tiered node, that usually does require a bit of handholding from support, but it is something that we understand how to do. Yep.
For the tiered nodes, is there going to be an option to do like 3 SSD and then 1 spinning versus 1 SSD and 3 spinning when you don't need that massive data?
3 SSDs. No, but more of a technical limitation than a philosophical one. So basically, the way that the failure groups are organized, we need to have within the like primary storage. So in this case, yeah, we would need at least 3 disks for a tiered setup. I suppose we could flip it around, but it would be kind of an inverse. It wouldn't be good from a performance standpoint. You'd almost be better off just running 3 SSDs rather than 3 plus a spinner.
Okay.
With the virtual GPU pass-through, will you need to buy NVIDIA license?
So yeah, question about the NVIDIA license and specifically why we wouldn't do pass-through. So as far as this integrated GPU, obviously there's no licensing involved with that. With NVIDIA, yes, you're correct. And that has been a topic of conversation, a topic of debate a little bit, but a topic of conversation internally on, if and how we would extend pass-through support for NVIDIA GPUs. We do understand that it's a need in very specific use cases. We've run into one where it was, purely just almost AI compute and needed to do nothing else. It never needed to be reconfigured, and it was a single node. So HA really wasn't a concern. In that case, yes, we enabled pass-through. Does work pretty well.
So we had a question yesterday in the advanced training came up about greater than 10 gig throughput to guest OS with the Vert IO drivers. Is there any discussion about increasing how much bandwidth is available down to those guest VMs?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that. You can certainly follow up afterward, though. Yeah, let me go back and talk to the team about that one. I don't know.
how do we get the answer for that question?
Likely talking to our virtualization team. Head of that would be Jesus Aguilera.
Sorry, I meant how do we get that info back from you? Because if you're gonna go ask them, like, do we just find you at dinner or?
Yeah, I'll definitely make myself available. Of course, you can always email me as well, cneitzel@scalecomputing.com, or just ask for Jones. People will come find me. Well, maybe. You might get Chris Jones. Hopefully not. Yes.
Do you expect any DNV certified hardware in the future?
I'm sorry?
DNV certified for the maritime industry, for example?
I don't know that I'm familiar.
Okay, it's an, let's say, industrial grade hardware components.
Let me follow up with you right after this if you're available. I'm curious to know to clarify on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you thinking that you brought it? Yeah, but so there are
More generally speaking on kind of the industrial rated systems, we are looking at some on the kind of on the lower end, and they were really specifically to fill a niche with having a witness node for kind of a 2-node setup with witness. But a lot of times, every time we've gone down the route of looking at something more ruggedized, we kind of run into this wall of it gets a bit too expensive for the market when it has all the componentry and all the capability that you need in a solution. But I'd love to hear more, so we can find out if there's a happy medium or if that's moved a bit. Oh, and look at that. I think we're actually out of time. But if anybody does have any follow-up questions or anything, just hit me up after this. Thank you.